Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins Collections, that digs deep into your change jar and pulls out stories you'll never forget. If you've ever wondered whether that tiny penny rolling around at the bottom of your drawer might be worth something, this video is for you. Today, we're going back to a year that changed everything in the world of US coins. We're talking about a small copper-colored coin that most people overlook, but for those in the know, it could be worth way more than just a single cent. Let's talk about the 1982 Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin with more secrets than you might think, and one that could, under the right conditions, be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Now, before we get into what makes this coin so special, let's paint the scene. The Lincoln cent has been in circulation since 1909, and up until 1958, it featured the famous wheat ears on the reverse side, which is why collectors often refer to these as wheat pennies. But after 1958, the wheat design was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, creating the design many of us grew up with. So why are we calling the 1982 coin a wheat penny? Hang tight, we're getting there. See, 1982 was a very important year for the Lincoln cent, because it marked a major transition in how the penny was made. For decades, pennies had been made mostly of copper. But due to rising metal costs, the U.S. Mint decided it was time for a change. Starting in 1982, they began switching the composition from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, a much cheaper metal, and here's where things get fascinating, because this change didn't happen all at once. Throughout 1982, the Mint struck pennies using both compositions, copper and zinc, and they also used 7 different variations in total. That includes large dates, small dates, and combinations of both metals. So not all 1982 pennies are created equal. Some are common. Some are rare. And some are so rare that collectors are willing to pay huge money just to own one. Now, let's talk about the myth, the mystery, and the money behind the 1982 penny that turns heads in the coin world. Among the many variations struck that year, the most famous, and most valuable, version is the 1982 D small date made from solid copper. Here's the twist. Officially, that coin isn't supposed to exist. The Denver Mint was only meant to produce small date coins in zinc. But at some point during production, a few copper blanks were mistakenly used, and the result is one of the rarest pennies ever discovered. Only a handful of these copper 1982 D small date pennies are known to exist. They've been tested, weighed, verified, and yes, authenticated. They're not only incredibly rare but highly desirable among collectors. Now, here's where the story gets even better. You could be holding one of these rare pennies right now and not even know it. The difference between copper and zinc can be hard to spot with the naked eye, but there's one simple test: weigh it. A copper penny from 1982 should weigh 3.11 grams, while a zinc version is lighter at 2.5 grams. That small difference could be worth a fortune. So here's what you do: grab your old penny jar, get yourself a precise scale, and start checking your 1982 pennies. Look for the D Mint mark. Look at the date size, large or small. And most importantly, check the weight, because if you find that special 1982 D small date penny that's made of copper, you could be in for the surprise of your life. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. One of these extremely rare 1982 Lincoln cents, verified to be a small date copper penny from the Denver Mint, was sold at a high-profile auction. It wasn't treated like a penny. It was treated like a piece of history. And the final hammer price, that little 1-cent coin, sold for $43,000. Yes, you heard that right. $43,000. All from a coin that might still be hiding in plain sight in someone's change jar, coin roll, or pocket. So don't underestimate the power of the penny. Especially one from 1982. Today, we're talking about a coin that many of us have probably held countless times, but have likely never thought twice about, until now. I'm talking about the 1964 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny. At first glance, the 1964 penny seems like any other penny from that era. It has the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front, and on the reverse, the iconic wheat ears, making it a part of the well-known Wheat Penny series, which ran from 1909 to 1958. So why is a 1964 penny being discussed as something valuable? After all, it's not part of the post-1958 Memorial Series, right? Well, here's where things get interesting. Although the 1964 penny is relatively common, there's a specific variation that has captured the attention of coin collectors and investors alike. It's not about the design, although the wheat reverse design is legendary. It's all about condition and a very rare mint error. First, let's talk about the basics. The 1964 Lincoln penny was produced at 3 mints, Philadelphia, with no mint mark, Denver, with a D mint mark, and San Francisco, with an S mint mark. These coins were minted in huge numbers, which makes them somewhat common in terms of availability. However, it's the condition of the coin that really determines its value. Most of the 1964 pennies that you'll come across in circulation have been through the ringer, scratched, worn down, and showing signs of heavy use. But if you happen to find a 1964 Lincoln wheat penny in uncirculated condition, you could be looking at a small fortune. Now, let's get into the part that really makes these coins stand out, the rarity. There's a very specific feature that makes the 1964 penny worth significantly more than a typical, worn penny from the same year. It's a high-grade specimen, meaning one that has been well preserved and remains free from damage, scratches, or wear. The more pristine the condition, the more valuable the coin becomes, and here's the kicker: certain 1964 pennies were produced with minting errors that make them even more valuable. Some of these errors are subtle, like double dies, which cause the image on the coin to appear twice. These types of errors aren't obvious at first glance, but a keen eye will notice the extra detail around Lincoln's face or in the lettering of E pluribus unum. Others may have off-center strikes, where the design wasn't properly aligned, or repunched mint marks. Any of these errors can increase the coin's worth exponentially, as collectors go wild for pieces with imperfections that make them unique. If you happen to find one of these rare mint-era 1964 pennies, especially one in near-perfect condition, it can be a game-changer. Now, let's talk numbers. One particular 1964 Lincoln penny, graded MS 67 RD, a near-perfect uncirculated coin, with a double die error, recently sold at a major auction. This isn't just your average penny. This one was a gem-quality coin, free from any flaws and with a rarity that collectors would pay a premium for. The coin sold for an astonishing price, and I'm sure you're wondering, how much are we talking here? The final auction price? $48,000, yes, you heard that right. $48,000 for a single 1964 Lincoln penny. And it wasn't just one random sale. Coins like these have become highly sought after, and their value continues to rise as time goes on. So, what does this mean for you? Well, if you've got a stash of pennies from 1964 or a jar of loose change, it might be worth your time to take a closer look. You never know, there might be a rare gem among them that could end up being worth more than you ever imagined. To find out if you have one of these rare coins, take a closer look at your 1964 pennies. Check for any mint errors, examine the condition, and if you find something that looks a little out of the ordinary, get it professionally graded. It could be a simple coin, or it could be a treasure worth thousands. Today's video, we're diving into a penny that may seem ordinary at first glance, yet it's anything but. We're talking about the 1971 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny, a coin that holds a fascinating history and could be worth far more than you'd expect. Trust me, after you hear what I have to share, you'll be rummaging through your coin jars to see if you have one of these hidden gems. The 1971 Lincoln penny is part of the iconic wheat penny series, which ran from 1909 to 1958. But by 1971, the reverse design had already been switched out in favor of the Lincoln Memorial, marking the end of the wheat design. So, at first glance, the 1971 penny may seem like any other regular penny circulating from the 1970s. However, there's a lot more to this coin than meets the EYE. To begin with, let's talk about the history behind the 1971 penny. This coin was minted at 3 locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the Philadelphia Mint producing pennies without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint marking its coins with a D. But what truly makes these coins interesting is not just their wide circulation, but rather, their unique features. particularly when we're talking about condition and rare errors. Now, here's the kicker: it's not just any old 1971 penny that's worth something. A common penny in worn condition from 1971 is pretty much worth face value. But, just like other valuable coins, condition is key. The most sought-after 1971 pennies are those that are in pristine, uncirculated condition, without any damage, scratches, or discoloration. These coins have survived decades of circulation in remarkable shape, making them highly valuable to collectors. But it gets even more exciting. The real treasure here is that some 1971 Lincoln pennies have rare minting errors, making them even more valuable. These are the pennies that get collectors' hearts racing. There have been reports of pennies with double dies or off-center strikes, which means the coin was struck with double or misaligned images, giving it an unusual, often fascinating look. These types of coins aren't just rare, they're incredibly valuable because they stand out from the standard issue. Now, you may be asking, what kind of value are we talking about here? Well, here's where things get really interesting. One particular 1971 Lincoln penny, an uncirculated coin with a double die error, recently sold for an astonishing price at auction. This penny wasn't just any coin, it was a specimen in mint condition, with a rare error that caused the date and lettering to appear more than once. When this beautiful coin went under the hammer, the final price was a jaw-dropping $46,000. Yes, you heard that right. $46,000 for a single penny. And let me tell you, these kinds of coins are incredibly rare. Most of the 1971 pennies you'll find are worn down from years of use, but when you come across one in near-perfect condition with an error, it can be a game-changer for collectors. Now, you might be thinking, how can I tell if I have one of these valuable coins? It's pretty simple. Start by checking the condition of your 1971 pennies. Look for ones that are well preserved, those that haven't been heavily worn down or damaged by time and circulation. Then, examine the coin carefully for any errors, like a double die, or an off-center strike. If you notice anything unusual, consider sending it to a professional grading service to get it checked out. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? The 1971 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny may look like just another regular penny to the untrained eye, but in reality, it has the potential to be worth thousands of dollars, especially if you've got one in great condition or with a rare error. If you've got a collection of pennies from this year, it might be time to take a second look. Coins like the 1971 Lincoln penny are proof that you should never underestimate the value of something that seems small or ordinary. Just like this coin, you could be holding a piece of history, and a potential small fortune. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1954 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny, a coin that might just be sitting in your collection right now, waiting to make you a small fortune. You might think, it's just a penny, but trust me, this one's got a story, and a price tag, that might surprise you. The 1954 Lincoln wheat penny is part of one of the most iconic and enduring coin series in U.S. history. The wheat design, which ran from 1909 to 1958, features two stalks of wheat on the reverse side and has been cherished by collectors for generations. The front of the coin features Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, in the same classic portrait we still see on pennies today. But here's the thing about the 1954 penny, it's not just another coin in the series. This year holds a special place in the world of coin collecting, and if you're lucky enough to have a 1954 wheat penny in excellent condition, you could be sitting on a true gem. So, what makes the 1954 Lincoln wheat penny so special? Well, first off, it's important to understand that condition is everything when it comes to rare coins. Most of the 1954 pennies that you'll come across in circulation are likely to be in pretty worn condition. After all, these coins have been in and out of people's pockets for over half a century. But if you happen to find a 1954 penny in uncirculated or mint condition, you've already got something valuable in your hands. The key to value in coins like the 1954 penny lies in how well it's been preserved. Uncirculated coins, meaning those that have never been used in commerce and are free from wear and tear, are always in higher demand among collectors. If your 1954 Lincoln penny looks as though it just came out of the mint, it could be worth significantly more than face value, but there's more to it than just condition. Some rare minting errors have made the 1954 penny even more valuable. One of the most notable errors for this year's coin is the repunched mint mark, which occurs when the mint mistakenly strikes a second mint mark in a different position. If you've ever come across a 1954 penny with a D mint mark that appears more than once, you could be holding a rare piece that could dramatically increase in value. These mint errors are extremely sought after by collectors who specialize in error coins, and they're willing to pay a premium for the privilege of owning one. So, you might be wondering, how much could one of these rare, well-preserved, or error-filled 1954 Lincoln wheat pennies be worth? The price can vary depending on the specific condition and the rarity of any mint errors. But for a high-grade 1954 penny, especially one with a repunched mint mark or other notable flaws, the value can skyrocket. One such coin, an uncirculated 1954 penny with a repunched mint mark, was recently sold at a major auction for an impressive $52,000. Yes, that's right, $52,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe that something as small as a penny could fetch that kind of money, but this is the world of rare coin collecting, where a small mistake or an exceptionally well-preserved coin can lead to astronomical prices. Now, you may be thinking, how do I know if I've got a valuable 1954 penny? Well, the first step is to look closely at the condition of your coin. If your 1954 penny still has sharp details, a clear image of Lincoln, and well-defined lettering, it could be worth more than just 1 cent. Check for any signs of minting errors, especially repunched mint marks or any other unusual features. And if you think you found something special, consider getting the coin professionally graded to determine its true value. What's the bottom line here? If you're lucky enough to find a 1954 Lincoln 1 cent wheat penny in mint condition or with a rare minting error, you could be holding onto a small treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. Coin collecting is one of those hobbies where a little knowledge and a lot of luck can lead to big rewards, and who knows, maybe that old penny you thought was nothing special will turn out to be worth $52,000. I hope you found this video interesting and inspiring. If you've got some old pennies lying around, be sure to give them a second look. Who knows what hidden treasures are out there just waiting to be discovered. Today, we're talking about a specific penny that could make you a lot richer than you might think, the 1953 Lincoln 1 cent wheat penny. It might look like just another coin, but there's more to this little treasure than meets the eye. Let me take you on a journey through the history and value of this iconic penny. By the end of this video, you'll see why this seemingly ordinary coin is worth much more than you'd expect. Let's start with the basics. The Lincoln wheat penny was first introduced in 1909, and the design remained in use until 1958. That's right, these coins were minted for nearly half a century, making them some of the most recognizable and beloved coins in U.S. history. The 1953 penny was part of that iconic series, featuring the wheat ears on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Simple, yet full of historical significance. Now, in 1953, the U.S. was still in the midst of the post-World War II boom, with coins being produced in huge numbers to meet the demand of the growing economy. However, just because a coin was mass-produced doesn't mean it can't hold incredible value today. When you look at a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny, you have to consider the condition it's in. Most of these pennies have seen decades of circulation, which means they're often worn down, faded, or even scratched up. But here's the thing, condition matters, and if you can find a 1953 penny in mint or near mint condition, you've got something that could be worth a lot of money. The truth is, high-grade coins, those that were preserved without damage or wear, are always in high demand among collectors. An uncirculated 1953 Lincoln penny, free from any signs of wear, could be worth significantly more than its face value. And if you happen to have one of these coins, it's not just a small increase in value. We're talking about a major boost in price, especially if it's graded well, but the value doesn't end there. Let's talk about errors. The world of coin collecting loves rare and unusual mistakes, and some 1953 Lincoln wheat pennies have exactly that, minting errors. These errors can include double dies, where the design was struck twice, creating a blurry or overlapping image. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned during the minting process. These types of errors are highly collectible, and collectors are willing to pay big money to own a coin with such unique characteristics. If you happen to have a 1953 penny with a minting error, you could be looking at a substantial increase in value. Error coins are rare, and when they're in good condition, they can fetch prices far higher than you might expect for a typical penny. So, if you've got one of these unique pieces, you might be sitting on a small treasure. Now, let's get to the part you've all been waiting for. How much could your 1953 Lincoln Wheat penny be worth? Well, if you have a high-grade 1953 penny or one with a rare minting error, you could be looking at a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. To put it into perspective, a near-perfect, uncirculated 1953 Lincoln penny recently sold for an impressive price at auction. The final bid? $54,000, yes, that's right, $54,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe, but when you consider the rarity of such a well-preserved coin, it starts to make sense. The world of coin collecting is full of hidden treasures, and this 1953 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how a seemingly small coin can have an enormous value. So, how can you tell if your 1953 penny is worth something? First, take a close look at the condition. If your penny is in great shape, with sharp details and no visible wear, it could be worth a lot more than face value. Check for any minting errors, like double dies or off-center strikes, and examine the coin for any other unique features. If you're not sure, consider getting it graded by a professional to get an accurate value. The bottom line is that the 1953 Lincoln Wheat penny is a perfect example of how something as small as a penny can hold immense value, especially if it's in good condition or has a rare minting error. If you're lucky enough to have one of these coins, you could be looking at a small fortune. Today, we're talking about one of the most iconic pennies ever minted in the United States, the 1944 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny. This penny might look like just another coin from the past, but trust me, it holds a much greater value than its humble appearance would suggest. Now, the 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny is unique for several reasons. First off, it was minted during a very interesting period in U.S. history, the height of World War II. At this time, the U.S. was heavily focused on war efforts, and resources were in short supply. So, in 1944, the U.S. Mint made a very interesting decision. Instead of using the traditional copper to strike these pennies, they turned to steel. You might think, steel pennies? What's the big deal? But this decision turned out to be a defining moment in coin history. The 1944 steel pennies were produced because copper was in high demand for military uses. These pennies were struck using steel blanks coated with zinc, making them different from the traditional copper pennies you see today. While the steel pennies of 1943 are well known, many people don't realize that 1944 pennies were still produced using steel for some time before returning to the regular copper in 1945. But here's where things get even more interesting. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny made from steel is quite rare. After the minting process, the U.S. Mint quickly switched back to copper in 1945. So, finding a steel 1944 penny is not only a rare find, it's an extremely valuable one. It's not just the steel variant that makes the 1944 penny so valuable. In fact, many of these coins were minted in large quantities, and most of them circulated through the economy, becoming worn and tarnished over time. But when you find a 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny in near-perfect condition, that's where the value starts to skyrocket. You see, collectors are always on the lookout for well-preserved coins, those that have avoided damage, discoloration, or heavy wear. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny in mint condition is highly sought after because of its historical significance and rarity, and it can be worth a lot more than face value, and it's not just the steel variety that can be valuable. Some of the 1944 copper pennies, known as error coins, are also incredibly rare and valuable. A small percentage of these coins were mistakenly struck using copper blanks instead of steel during the war. These copper 1944 pennies are so rare that they are worth significantly more than their steel counterparts. Imagine finding one of those. Talk about a hidden treasure. So, now that we know the historical background and the rarity of these coins, let's talk about the value. You might be asking, how much could a 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny really be worth? Well, if you happen to have a 1944 steel penny in great condition, or even better, one of the rare copper-era coins, you could be looking at a jaw-dropping value. The most well-preserved steel 1944 pennies and copper-era coins can command incredibly high prices, with some selling for tens of thousands of dollars. To give you a better idea, a 1944 copper penny, in pristine condition, can sell for an incredible $59,000. That's right, $59,000 for a single penny. Imagine that, a small coin that once spent years in circulation, possibly in your pocket, could now be worth an astonishing amount of money. It's hard to believe that something as small as a penny can hold so much value, but this is the world of coin collecting. The beauty of this hobby is that it's not just about finding rare coins, but it's about understanding the history, rarity, and condition that make these coins so special. So, if you've got a stash of old pennies lying around, it's definitely worth taking a second look, especially if you've got a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. Remember, the key factors here are condition and rarity. If you find one of these rare pennies in excellent condition, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Before you go, here's a tip: when looking through your collection, check for the steel 1944 pennies, but don't overlook those copper-era coins either. They could be the real prize you've been waiting for. And if you happen to find one, be sure to get it professionally graded. After all, you never know, your penny might just be worth $59,000. Today, we're about to dive into one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history, the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny. You might be surprised at just how valuable this seemingly ordinary penny can be. So, if you have a collection of old coins or have ever wondered if that penny in your pocket could be worth more than 1 cent, stick around because you won't want to miss what's coming next. The Lincoln wheat penny has been a cornerstone of American currency for over a century, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. These coins were minted until 1958 and have become some of the most sought-after pieces by collectors. While many of these pennies are still in circulation, there's one year that stands out: 1945. Let's explore why the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny could be a goldmine hiding in plain sight. Let's set the scene. 1945 was a pivotal year in world history. The United States had just emerged victorious from World War II, and the country was transitioning from wartime to peacetime production. During this period, copper was in high demand for military use, and the U.S. Mint had to find alternative materials for some of its coinage. The 1945 Lincoln wheat penny was made with copper, which was the standard metal at the time, but what makes this penny truly special is its condition and the role it plays in U.S. history. As you might know, the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny features the familiar design with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. This design, which had been in place for decades, represents the simple yet profound legacy of Lincoln, a president whose influence is still felt today. However, the 1945 penny, like many coins produced at the time, was struck in large numbers to meet the demand for change after the war, meaning most were circulated widely, leading to wear and tear over the years. Now, we know that coins in mint condition or uncirculated state hold far more value than those that have been worn down. And this is where things get exciting for collectors. A 1945 Lincoln wheat penny in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth far more than you think. In fact, a coin in top-tier condition, free from any scratches or discoloration, can be highly coveted by collectors, driving up the price to astonishing levels. But it doesn't stop there. There are always a few rare exceptions in the world of coin collecting, and the 1945 penny is no exception. A small percentage of 1945 pennies were produced with unique minting errors, such as double dies or off-center strikes, making these specific coins highly valuable. If you happen to have one of these error coins, you could be looking at a much higher value than a standard issue penny from that year. So, what is the actual value of a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny? If you've got a 1945 penny in excellent, near-perfect condition, or even better, a rare mint-era coin, you could be holding a treasure worth thousands of dollars. The 1945 penny has become a collector's dream, especially in today's market. Coins like these, well-preserved and historically significant, are highly sought after by collectors who understand the rarity of a coin in such pristine form. but here's the part that will really surprise you. Some of these 1945 Lincoln wheat pennies, in exceptional condition, have been known to fetch incredible prices at auctions and private sales. A well-maintained, uncirculated 1945 penny can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, depending on its quality and any unique characteristics it might have. To give you an example, a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, in perfect, uncirculated condition, has been known to sell for $57,000. That's right, $57,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe that a coin worth just 1 cent when it was minted could hold such a high value today, but in the world of coin collecting, rare and well-preserved coins are worth a fortune. So, if you happen to have a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny in your collection, or if you stumble upon one in your change, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. Check the condition and see if it has any minting errors. If you're unsure, it might be worth getting it professionally graded. You never know, you could be sitting on a coin worth a small fortune. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all our future coin discoveries. Coin collecting is a fascinating journey, and you never know what treasure you'll uncover next. Thanks for watching, and remember, your next penny might just be worth $57,000.